Hey y'all, welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley. This is a story time for the most part. Is it still recording? Okay. But I want to share a little bit about what it's like to receive psychic gifts, and then start utilizing them. And I want to do this from like a first person perspective. So there's a couple things we got to cover. Apparently not everybody can even visualize in their brain. So anyway, this is mostly for people who feel like they might have some telepathic clairvoyance gifts, spiritual gifts. I truly still believe that we all do. It's just a matter of learning how to utilize them. But I guess if not everybody even can see in their brain, I don't know how brains work. I know that my brain has been criminalized and studied on the inside. So I want to give a disclaimer too. If you are a person who is currently resonating with a mental health diagnosis such as schizophrenia, or something else that may cause delusions or hallucinations, and you're currently seeking treatment for that using pharmaceuticals or psychotropics, I am not telling you to go off your meds. I'm simply sharing that what I went through, okay? This is not medical advice whatsoever. Do not go off your meds. It will make things worse. You have to do that gradually. With all that being said, I am a neurodivergent person. I can see things in my head, and a lot of the times that has been criminalized and pathologized, which is what I got my master's degree in, kind of undoing that, right? But again, if you are currently seeking treatment for anything that the DSM has diagnosed you with, do not go off of your meds on a whim. This could be the beginning of you. This is just a seed. Do not do what I did or what I'm talking about, okay? Don't go crazy. Psychosis is a real thing when you go off and on medication, so don't make yourself go crazy. That's gonna cause problems, criminal justice problems, incarceration problems. Don't do that. All right, anyway, so for folks who can hear or see, or you have like a constant flow of ideas, or like the narrative, I guess is a way to say it. So I don't believe that's schizophrenia. That's spiritual gifts. I have a constant flow of ideas. I am constantly getting ideas. I'm also clairvoyant, okay? I have lots of psychic gifts, but they weren't always seen as psychic gifts, which is why we talked about the mental health issue. I was labeled with a lot of different mental health or mental illness labels. But yeah, I think that apparently your brain works on a spectrum. Some people don't have anything going on. It's just quiet blank space, which is not my experience at all. And then it's like all the way to the other side of the spectrum where you can recall movies, and that's more me. I can watch movies in my head, like visually. I can listen to them. Like I can see, if I want to visualize something, I can. I can see things that don't really exist. It's called an imagination. I can see, I'm constantly having ideas. I think when I tried to conceptualize this in the past, so I'm not a fan of Freud, but he talks about the id, the ego, id, and superego, I think. In that same kind of relation, I like to think of I, me, and we. There's also you, okay? So, like, sometimes narratives come through with I statements, right? Sometimes they come in with you statements. This is just how my brain works. And so for a long time, when I was undergoing recovery from having my mind fucked with, because it's a little bit sparklier than others on that spectrum we talked about. What the fuck is that? Oh fuck, where was I? Spectrum, sparkly. I don't know. Ultimately, if you are a person who can experience these things and you're not quite sure how to start exploring them, get on YouTube. There's a lot of people on YouTube, a lot of spiritual people who can support you. When I started reclaiming my brain, especially after 2017, I sought out others who channel, because I channel, which means I am constantly receiving information that is not just my brain working. It's coming from other sources, right? And you can't see these things, they're not tangible, so that's when you get called crazy, especially if you don't know how to allow yourself to be a vessel to translate channels. Right? So if you're just like, you know, I've had those moments too where I was just like channeling the information, writing it down, then they call me manic and grandiose, but it was really just my channel opening, and the information coming in. I know this probably sounds crazy, but anyway, so I want to talk about a couple things. If you have these abilities, congratulations. Apparently it's not common. I still truly believe we all have the ability. I feel like a lot of us are just disconnected from it, right? Baby, if it's not making you happy, play a different game. Games are supposed to be fun. Anyway. So, I think nowadays we have a lot more words for these things, right? Neurodivergent, autistic, clairvoyance too has had more study and more, you know, telepathy, telekinesis. More people are getting online and sharing that they can like legit, you know, transform shit. People are sharing their gifts. When I went through all of my stuff, it was pretty taboo, especially within my like nuclear family. That like I was just crazy. Okay, that was the only explanation. But when you start to receive these gifts, and they come when they're meant to, honestly, that's what I truly believe. If you have the ability to communicate with dead people, oh my god, this kid. Yeah. Hey, if it's not making you happy, you need to stop doing it. Do I need to take it from you? Okay. Emotional regulation is a skill. He is in this place where he keeps doing the same thing and keep getting mad, and that's okay. He'll learn eventually. Okay, so where was I? When you start to receive these gifts, seek out others who know about the experience. That's my advice. It's my number one advice, because you know, if you're around a bunch of people who don't even believe these things are real, right? They're not going to believe you. First of all, they're going to tell you you're crazy. You're going to have to go through things the way I did, which was not fun, and it took a really long time to get over. Can you get out of my face? You eat poop and you stink. Thank you. So yeah. I want you, I'm here to validate your experience, regardless of what you've been labeled with. Again, do not stop your treatment if you're being treated right now for anything. But I am here to validate that your brain is like an electromagnetic piece of equipment, right? Like, we're just, have you ever seen the nerves? What is that called? The nervous system, where it's like the brain is attached to the spine and like all the nerves, and so it kind of looks like a sea creature. And like your heart and your brain work electromagnetically, and they don't really want you to know that, they being the powers that be, right? Because if you are in touch with your, you know, powers, because I see these as powers, right? Especially when I learned that like some people just have complete blank slates in their heads. I don't understand, right? And so like I was always criminalized for like having thought, right? I'm like, why am I being criminalized for my brain like being really good? But it's really just because the powers that be really want to study us like that, you know? Become a science project. Like I was a guinea pig with all those big pharmas and everything. Anyway, if and when you start to recognize that you have these powers, ensure that you have a safe network around you. You can totally reach out to me, even if you are in mental health crisis or mental whatever anguish, emotional distress. You can also reach out to me. I've worked with a lot of people who are in, you know, balls deep in hallucinations, delusions. I can talk to you when you're like that. Don't worry about it. Not everyone can. Mostly because I've been through it, and I know I treat people the way I wish I would have been treated in that time, right? Like everybody looked at me like I was fucking psycho. I don't look at people like that ever, especially in the midst of, you know. But like when you start to receive these gifts, like I remember I started doing numerology just out of fucking blue, and remember that, you know, drugs can induce things, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have spiritual powers. That could just be drug induced things, right? Your brain is reacting to a drug more likely than, you know, you uncovering gifts, right? And I'm not telling you need to like go through like sobriety and be abstinent from everything, but just remember, drugs have effects, right? So if you're, and yes, alcohol is a drug, so if you're using those things and it's affecting you, alcohol really affects people to go into like depressive episodes, right? I'm pretty sure like as a society we understand that at this point, and anger, myself included. When and if I partake in alcohol, I try to stay around a 5% alcohol level, whether it's beer or wine, 6%, but I don't really like going higher than that, because my shadows will come out, right? If and when I do. So anyway, all that to say is, if you are starting to receive gifts, because I feel like there's just like a large awakening at this point, I'm gonna caution you on like not pretending you know everything right off the bat. Remember that there's been a wave of us who have reconnected, even before me, right? I've been on my journey for a long time, but there's people who have reconnected a lot longer before me, right? And, you know, Dolores Cannon is a white woman, and she has a YouTube channel, or she's got some stuff, but she talks about like these waves of, I don't want to say the word, but starseeds, or people who come from different realms of existence to incarnate here on Earth, in a human form to support the human collective. And I'm not asking you to change your identity or the way that you feel or any beliefs, but I'm letting you know that not everyone has the ability to utilize these things. Not everybody can even, some people can't even visualize like an apple. Like when you say apple, apparently they can't even like, I don't know, they can't even like see an apple in their brain. I don't understand. Like I said, when I'm falling asleep at night, sometimes I like to watch movies in my head. Like I'll be like, what do I want to watch? and I'll just start replaying the movies in my head. But not everyone can do that, or not everyone has practiced it. So anyway, I want to give you some more prompts to practice these things. But again, if gifts come to you, my biggest thing is have a safe space to practice and find people who are like you. There's a woman on YouTube named Natalie, and her channel is Alchemy in You, and she's a Pisces too. And when I found her in 2017, I had never come across someone who channeled the way I do, whose brain worked as fast. So Natalie is someone that when I started watching her, I was like, oh my God, I have really intense gifts. And she always does a, disclaimer about schizophrenia too, but we channel, we receive information, and it comes from different sources. But if you're in a space of paranoia, right, again, whether it's drug induced or medication induced, be careful with the information you're receiving. I have worked with people who have been in mental health crisis who channel celebrities specifically. If you're receiving celebrities or channels from celebrities or these big names, more than likely that is a negative entity, demonic entity cloaking itself, and causing like mental distress. Okay, that's not, I personally do not work with any deities. I only trust a few of my relatives, and even then, not all of them, because I am a white person and I've done the decolonizing work. But I don't identify who I'm receiving channels from. At this point in time, I did at one point, and that's kind of what made me go a little bit cray-cray, because at one point I was like, oh, I'm channeling Thomas Jefferson. Oh, that was like really early on in the beginning. Oh, I'm channeling Da Vinci, right? Now I've gotten to a point where I just receive information and I don't need to know where it comes from, but I will use the discernment. Discernment is another gift, apparently. I will use the discernment as the channel through the vessel of whether or not this is a necessary information for me, if it has to do with my life, or if it has to do with the collective, or if it's an idea or a pivot, a move to make, or whatever. So ultimately, it's a lot of practice, but I think the thing that got me to this point was surrounding myself with others, whether it has never been physical. I've never found people in the physical, like, that I could, like, sit and talk with, right? I have found people on YouTube, though. So if you are interested or need support or need to just explore what it looks like when people use their gifts, witch talk is a thing. Gonna caution you on that, because a lot of people who do identify as that do work with entities, regardless of light or dark or whatever. But tarot readers, spiritual folk, there's a lot of people who share more in-depth how-to. I hope this was helpful. I'm gonna trust that whatever came out needed to come out. I'm gonna run out of time, so I can make a part 2. I'm not quite sure if I got to my point or not when I initially started. So if this was interesting, let me know. But yeah, be very careful, but also trust yourself, and be curious about how your brain works and what powers or what gifts you have, right? It is this time in humanity that all of us need to awaken to our supernatural things that we can do, our extraordinary gifts that we can do to support our collective liberation. Have a good one.